Hey everyone, this is Ken with Sir Walter Shipping. It's been quite some time since I put out a prior video, so I wanted to put out a video today. Try to put one out before the end of the calendar year 2024. Um, in 2025, I definitely want to start posting more regularly, and I hope to bring everyone a little bit more information, not just about owning a shipping store, but I want to kind of move beyond just that limited scope and target anyone who's aspiring to have a business, in the process of starting a business, or anyone who currently owns a business. And so that's kind of going to be my goal in 2025. So I hope to do that. And what I really want to do is today is I want to put out a video. I'm sure many of you have heard, anyone who has a corporation or an LLC or any business, you've heard about the BOI, right? And you've probably heard about the fact that you need to file this. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what this is and kind of go a little bit beyond of some of the other videos that I've seen people post about this. Um, so anybody who doesn't know, the BOI, as you can see, is the beneficial ownership information, right? And this is basically governed by FinCEN, as you can see, which is basically an acronym for Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. And FinCEN was basically created in 1990 by a Treasury order, which is 105-08 on April 25th, 1990. However, its framework really comes under the Currency and Financial Transactions Reporting Act of 1970, and its purview was augmented under the more infamous Patriot Act, as everyone knows, that happened after 9/11, and also the BSA, which is known as the Bank Secrecy Act, which was also passed in 1970. Uh, and I think that is really under the OCC, which is the Office of Comptroller of the Currency. And so I wanted to kind of show everyone here what basically what is, you can see this is the U.S. Department of the Treasury, right, which it's under. So you can see, well, what's a Treasury order? What's a Treasury directive, right? You might be wondering that. I don't know. So a Treasury order is basically similar to an executive order. Obviously, the difference being an executive order is signed by the executive branch or the president, and whereas the Treasury orders, right, they're signed by the secretary or deputy secretary, and the Treasury directives are signed by some senior Treasury official, right? So that's kind of the main difference between the two. But that's basically how this kind of came into be, and then also started to have some teeth into it, and then they pushed it forward, right? So, and from sort of, if you kind of drill down a little bit, FinCEN is basically, if you look at it, it's just an internal bureau within the Department of the Treasury, right? It's operating under the auspices of combating, this whole BOI thing is sort of under the auspices of combating domestic and international money laundering, which is supposedly in effect, right? You could fund nefarious activities like terrorism, which might be a good term to look up if you want to. And I'm maybe I'll touch on this more in a future episode, but I'm not going to get into all that today. So I remember back, I think it was in November, I started seeing a whole bunch of videos, right, and threads that were going around social media where people were talking about, you got to file your BOI by the end of 2024. You're going to be fined $500 a day. You could go to jail, blah blah blah, right? All that kind of stuff. So I wanted to kind of have this video just to talk a little bit more about that. So one of the things we'll look at, right? So you can see on the website they have these different alerts, and this alert right here may be of interest to everybody. So if you kind of read this, what you'll see is, I don't want to read the whole thing, but you'll see the Corporate Transparency Act, the CTA, right, plays a vital role in protecting the U.S. and international financial systems, yada yada yada. But what you'll find interesting is on Tuesday, right here, on Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024, in the case of Texas Top Cop Shop Inc. et al. Versus Garland et al. Right here. There was a U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Texas in Sherman Division issued an order granting a nationwide preliminary injunction, right? Only one of several cases that have challenged the CTA, right? And pending the courts around the country, several district courts have denied requests to enjoin the CTA ruling in favor of the Department of the Treasury. The government continues to believe, consistent with the conclusions of the U.S. District Courts for the Eastern District of Virginia and the District of Oregon, that the CTA is constitutional. For that reason, the Department of Justice, on behalf of the Department of the Treasury, filed a notice of appeal on December 5th, 2024, and separately sought of the stay of the injunction pending that appeal. So, what does this really all mean? What it really means is that there was a ruling in Texas, along with other rulings in other states and other jurisdictions, where they found that this was not constitutional, and individuals or persons having to file this BOI, basically under the auspices of transparency to see who actually owns the underlying business, is not constitutional. Well, the government does what they always do, right? They owned the U.S. District Court of the Eastern District of Virginia, and they probably have somebody in the District of Oregon who will rule in their favor. And so they're saying, well, our rulings, because of the rulings we've got, we believe that it's constitutional. Just because this other jurisdiction in Texas, this U.S. District Court of the Eastern District of Texas, we don't really think that's a valid ruling. We think our ruling is more valid, therefore, we believe that this is still constitutional. So, what does all this mean? What it means is, if you come down to here, on December 23rd, 2024, a panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit granted a stay of the district court's preliminary injunction entered in the case of the prior mentioned case pending the outcome of the Department of the Treasury's ongoing appeal of the district court's order. So what does this mean? This is what it means. FinCEN, right here, okay, has extended the reporting deadlines on December 26, 2024. However, a different panel on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit issued an order vacating the court's December 23, 2024 order granting a stay of the preliminary injunction. Accordingly, as of December 26, 2024, the injunction issued by the district court, blah, 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 is in effect, and reporting companies are not currently required to file beneficial ownership information with FinCEN. Okay? So that's kind of interesting, right? So what's even more interesting is the dates, right? So basically what they're saying is that they're extending this out. Okay, so let's go, I don't know, maybe, let's look here. Is it on here? No, that's specific to this. This is the prior one. Okay, so this is the most recent one. All right, so let's go to this. So let's go to their, so right here you can see, I'm in the reference materials. So you can see this is basically where they're getting the teeth, right, for this. This right here, this is the law, but the actual regulation, which is where basically the enforcement is, it's right here. So this would be Title 31 CFR 1010.380. We're going to take a look at that in a second. So let's first go to the small business. So we come here, I don't know, reference materials. Let's take, wait, did I just go in a roundabout circle here? Sorry, this right here, the guide. I'm going in circles. Okay. So this is interesting right here, right? The reporting requirements discussed in this guide are not in effect until January 1st, 2024. No reports will be accepted prior to that date. Entities required to report will be able to do so on or after January 1st, 2024. Okay. So that's a prior thing. So let's go down. Let's get into some of this. All right. So here, when do I have to file a report? Reports will be accepted starting January 1st, 2024. Okay. Reporting companies created or registered to do business before January 1st, 2024 will have additional time until January 1st, 2025 to file their initial BOI reports. Reporting companies created or registered on or after January 1st, 2024, and before January 1st, 2025, have 90 calendar days after receiving actual public notice that the company's creation or registration is in effect to file their initial BOI reports. Okay, specifically, this 90-day calendar day deadline runs from the time the company receives actual notice that is the creation or registration is in effect. Okay, so basically when they let you know or they update their database, that's basically what it is. Reporting companies created or registered on or after January 1st, 2025 will have 30 calendar days from actual or public notice that the company's creation or registration is effective to file for their initial BOI reports. So basically, in a nutshell, if you created your LLC or your corporation prior to January 1st, 2024, you have till the end of the year. To the end of you have basically have until the 20, till the 31st, right? And but because of that court decision, they're now saying, well, now you have till January 13th. So technically, you don't have to fill it out to January 13th now because they bumped that deadline out. But if you created your LLC or corporation and the calendar year of 2024, so after on or after January 1st, 2024, or before January 1st, 2025, then you basically have 90 days to fill that out. But if you create your business, your corporation or LLC on January 1st, 2025, or after, you have 30 days. That's basically what they're saying. So, but they're still extending those deadlines out, right, for all the people that had it prior because of this court case. So let's go a little bit deeper. Let's dig into this just a little bit. I understand that people are like, okay, oh, I could get in trouble. I got to fill this out. Da 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 da. Okay. So the question is, they keep saying reporting company, right? So what is a reporting company? That would be something that we'd probably want to know, right? What is a reporting company? Well, the reporting rule requires that all reporting companies file the BOI reports with FinCEN within the previously specified timeframes. Okay, we just talked about that. A reporting company is any entity that meets the reporting company definition and does not qualify for an exemption. There are two categories of reporting companies: a domestic reporting company or a foreign reporting company. Okay, well, that's interesting. Maybe we should probably dig a little bit deeper into what is a reporting company. Let's do that in a minute. Okay. So now, okay, so now they're getting into the exemptions here. All right, so we got that. Let's look at, well, specifically what is a reporting company? And we know that there's a statute that they gave us, right? It was, what was it? It was Title 31, USC, what was it? I can't remember now. Does it have it on there? Right here, 10.10.380. There we go. So you can see I've looked at this before I ever fill anything out. I always try to read and understand things. So, okay. So, reports of beneficial ownership information. So, we already talked about the requirements, right? Um, so, we already talked about that. Update report. Okay. So, an updated report. Files, 30 days. So, this is just if you're changing, updating information, right? Corrected report right here, right? So, this is kind of interesting. I find this might be a corrected report filed under this paragraph within 30-day period shall be deemed satisfied. Filed within 90-day calendar days of the date at which is inaccurate report, blah blah blah. So now they tell you, okay, what is the actual information of what you actually need? Here's the special rules, okay, blah blah blah. Let's keep going. Because what we really want to do is get to the definition of what a reporting company is. Okay, here it is in section C, reporting company. The definition of a reporting company. For purposes of this section, the term reporting company, you can see, means either a domestic reporting company or a foreign reporting company. It's kind of interesting. Well, the term domestic reporting company means any entity that is a corporation, a limited liability company or created by, right, the filing of a document with a Secretary of State or any similar office under the law of a state or Indian tribe. Did any of you catch that? Created the filing of a document with a Secretary of State. So we understand a corporation or a limited liability company, right? Or maybe you have a limited liability company that you change to an S corporation, in which case, if you make over $50,000, you can start paying yourself a salary, which is probably something you might want to look into. You can start giving yourself a 401k and matching and all that kind of good stuff. So if you have an LLC, you may consider changing it to or keeping an LLC but filing it as an S corporation. But that's a whole nother ball of wax, something you might want to look into. But this part, if you caught it, created the filing of a document with a Secretary of State. That's very fascinating. So why would you have to file? This is Title 31 CFR, right? 1010.380. Well, what is that? A CFR is a code of federal regulation. So if I filed something with the Secretary of State and I've created some type of entity, right? Does that mean why is it obligated to file some kind of transparency document with the federal government? Does that mean the federal government has jurisdiction within the state? What does that mean? Right? That's kind of an interesting thing, something you might want to consider. Well, let's let's consider that basically. Let's look at this. So reporting company. Okay, let's go down a little more. So registered. So now they have the foreign reporting. It's basically the same kind of thing, right? So we keep going. So I just find this super interesting. So let's just bear with me. So let's say in a state you you're a person, right? You were born in whatever state you were born in. They filed a birth certificate in that state, and you also uh, you also have a social security number, right? And all that was your that's was all filed with the Secretary of State, right? Like your birth certificate, all that stuff was filed with the Secretary of State. So then that's kind of interesting thought, right? Does that mean that you have to file if you don't? What if you don't have an LLC or a corporation, but you're just a person? Does that mean you need to file your social security number along with your birth certificate because that's a number that is registered by the federal the SSN is given to you by the federal government, right? So then you might ask, well, what is a person? That might be a good thing to ask yourself. And I don't have it up on the screen, but I have one in front of me. I have a Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. So I'm just going to read you. Sorry, let me get to the page here. Okay. So a person, right? In general usage, a human being, i.e., natural person. It's kind of interesting. Why would they specify natural person? I see people wear all the time these shirts that say, "You're my person." So it kind of seems like in legalese, maybe a person is something slightly different than common parlance or people's general understanding of what a person is when they say, "You're my person." So let me read a little bit more. Though by statute term may include labor organizations, partnerships, associations, corporations, legal representatives, trustees in bankruptcy, or receivers. That's really weird. Why when the word person, why would they include all of these things? So then if you go down a little bit further, and generally speaking, right? So they have the scope of it, and then they get into what is an alien. Aliens are persons with the meaning of the 14th Amendment, uh, and thus protected by equal protection clause against discriminatory state action. Well, that's kind of interesting. Bankruptcy code. There's a definition for persons in commercial law, and then you get into down to the fourth definition of a person. It actually says corporation. Well, that's kind of fascinating. We have corporation right here under reporting. So a corporation is a person within means of 14th Amendment equal protection and due process provisions of United States Constitution. The term persons in statute relating to conspiracy to commit offense against the United States or defraud United States or any agency includes corporation. That's super weird. So does that mean a person is a corporation? In fact, do y'all remember? In fact, Yusuf El, he's got a great channel. You should go check his channel out. Do you guys remember Mitt Romney several years ago? Everyone busted his chops because he said, let's just put in Mitt Romney, uh, corporations are people. So why would he say that? He's saying, okay, let's just see here. Yeah, whatever, I don't care.
Corporations are people, my friend. We can raise taxes on, of course they are.
So he just said corporations are people. Well, people are persons, but why would he say that? Is he an idiot? I don't know if Mitt Romney's an idiot or a super smart guy. I have no idea, to be honest. I don't know the man, and I'm certainly not going to judge the man. But if you guys remember, he got a lot of flack about that. And if you ask me, what he did was he let slip something that the common man or common woman should not know, which is that a corporation and a person from a legal perspective are one and the same. So I'm only trying to highlight here, this brings up an interesting legal question. Does that mean even if you don't have a corporation or an LLC, do you still need to file? Because a corporation is a person, and a person, are you a person? Is your social security number, is that considered a person or is that not considered a person? And does that mean that it also is defined as a corporation? It's just an interesting thing to think about, right? All right. So I don't want to get too caught up on this point, but you kind of get it. So let's go a little bit down a little further and let's look at some like the actual exemptions, right? So here we get into the exemptions. Notwithstanding paragraph in this section, reporting company does not include. Okay, so a reporting company, if you got an LLC or a corporation, which most people acting with their business, that's what these are, right? So okay, so you're a quote unquote reporting company, right? I don't know why they determine that, but that's what they're defining from a legalese standpoint. They're defining a reporting company as a corporation, LLC. But then they have all these interesting exemptions. And if you know, it's like governmental authority, right? Governmental authority, right? Or a bank, any bank defined in. So look at FDIC, Investment Act, 1940, they get all these things. Credit unions are exempt. Well, that's really fascinating because why would they exempt banks? Why would they exempt a bank? I'm assuming most of you who are listening to this know about the Federal Reserve Bank, which is, it's not federal, nor is it an actual reserve. It's a private corporation. And if you actually go look up let's just look this up, uh, Federal Reserve Act, Section 7, I believe it is. So let's look this up. Okay, kind of interesting. Is this it? I guess this is it. So this is the federalreserve.gov, right? And you can see division of earnings, dividends and surplus funds of reserve banks, stockholder dividends. Wait, what? The Federal Reserve has stockholders that pay out dividends? That's really weird. Didn't know that. Dividend amount. After all necessary expenses of a Federal Reserve Bank have been paid or provided for, the stockholders of the bank shall be entitled to receive an annual dividend on paid-in capital stock of. In the case of a stockholder with total consolidated assets of more than, what is that, $10 trillion or something, the smaller, I don't know, is that 1,000, 10 billion, okay? The smaller of the rate equal to the high yield of the 10-year Treasury note auction or the prior payment of. So it's basically there's interest the Federal Reserve has to pay interest to its stockholders, right, via dividends at an interest rate of 6% or, right, whatever the rate of the 10-year Treasury note is, right? The high yield of the 10-year Treasury note is, okay? So in the case of stockholders with consolidated assets of 10 billion or less, they get basically 6%. That's super weird, isn't it? Do you understand what this really means? It means that the Federal Reserve has stockholders. So the government wants you in your little tiny business to fill out, okay, this BOI because they're worried about terrorism and nefarious money going around funding things and who knows what it oh I mean maybe your business, maybe you own like 5 laundromats and you know you're doing things with Putin, I don't know, and you're funneling money to Russians and to do nefarious things to uh, someone else, right? I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm just saying you could be doing nefarious things with your 5 little laundromats, right? So that's really fascinating. So the thing is but they give a exception to banks, specifically the biggest bank, which is the Federal Reserve Bank, which clearly has stockholder dividends that they're paying out at a minimum of 6%. You do 6% at $10 billion or more, right? You can see the numbers. And basically, Congress no longer has the right to create its own money, which is what constitutionally it used to do, right? With constitutional money actually being gold and silver. Now we have this Federal Reserve Bank system, which basically prints money ad nauseum with basically no oversight. There's never been an internal audit or external audit, I should say, done within the Federal Reserve. And they're doing this basically, and in each dollar that's loaned, there's at least 6% interest that's paid out to some stockholder that they created an exemption for because they don't want you to know who the stockholders of the Federal Reserve Bank are. Are you getting this? Do you start to see what this is? It's very fascinating. I'm only bringing up just for entertainment purposes some interesting things because other people on the internet are just telling you to just fill out this documentation, don't ask questions, don't look into things, just do whatever you're told. And I'm not disputing or arguing against that. I'm just bringing up interesting things that I, as a very simple man, am noticing on my own. Okay? So I kind of find all these things interesting. I don't know if you do. So, anyways, let's get into a little bit. Let's go a little bit beyond this, right? So now we see that there's some exceptions, and we talked about a little bit of things. The Federal Reserve here, which is kind of interesting. You can check that out yourself. But um, so what is really going on here? So you need to fill this out, right? You need to go in here and you need to fill out the whole BOI thing, right? So let me come back here. So the home page, they make it real nice. They got a video here you can watch. So that's pretty nice, shows you how to fill it out. And so if you're here, right, and you're like, file a report using the BOI e-filing system. Okay. So you go here and you're like, well, I want to e-file this because that's easy, right? I want to do that, and you can do it whichever way you want. You can submit it. I don't know. You can it'll go via their API. You do it on your website, and then it'll update in the back end with their API. And so whatever, you can prepare and submit. Not required. You can e-file. You can do this. If I wanted to do it, let's prepare. You can do that document, or if I just want to submit, I agree. Did you see that pop up there? Let me do that again. Whatever, it's not going to do it. But please note that beneficial ownership reporting requirements have been affected by a recent federal court order. The Department of Treasury is appealing that order. In the meantime, reporting companies are not currently required to file a BOIR and are not subject to liability if they fail to do so while the applicable order remains in force. This is interesting, right? Are you seeing this? Are you seeing this? Disclaimer. I'm not saying you shouldn't fill this out. Compliance reminder: the willful failure to report complete beneficial ownership information to FinCEN, the willful failure to update beneficial ownership information provided to FinCEN when previously reported information changes, or the willful provision of false or fraudulent beneficial ownership to FinCEN may result in civil or criminal penalties. A person, here's that word person again. This is so interesting. Do you see how all this sort of coalesces into like a weird thing? You could almost say it's a conspiracy, right? You could almost say it's a conspiracy. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying there's a lot of interesting things going on here. I think if you're intellectually curious, you should look into these a little bit further. But that's just me. A person may also be subject to civil or criminal penalties for willfully causing a reporting company to report incomplete or false beneficial ownership information. Man, this is like when you see this is really scary. It's in yellow and it pops up here before you hit the I agree. They got this right here. But right up here, it also says, I don't know. It's a little confusing that I'm not required to are not reporting companies. We already looked that up. So we know an LLC, right? An LLC back here. Where's it at? An LLC or a corporation, right? That's what a reporting company is. Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. Are not required. Not currently required. So that's interesting. Okay. So you can fill this stuff out. You can get going. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. If you've already done it, great. If you haven't done it, it's up to you. Uh, so you can look this. You can also say, I certify that I am authorized to file this BOIR on behalf of the reporting company. I further certify on behalf of the reporting company that the information contained in this BOI is true, correct, and complete. I don't know. I am not a legal expert. I am not a lawyer. I am not a CPA. This is not legal advice. I'm not telling you what to do. I am not certified in any way. I'm just some schmuck on the internet talking, bringing up things that I personally find interesting. It's for entertainment value only. However, this to me, if I didn't know better, reads like a contract. That's what it reads like to me. It reads like a contract. And if you know anything about contracts, there's really two types of contracts, right? There's implied contracts, which a contract does not have explicitly stated terms, but exists based on conduct. So think about like a driver's license, right? So a driver's license, you signed up for it, right? And with any contract, there's what they call compelled performance. You're obligated to comply with because you wanted a benefit or a privilege that comes with basically that complied performance, right? That contract. You're getting some kind of benefit or privilege with that. So an implied contract doesn't have to tell you the stated terms. It's what they call in legal terms a leap of logic or an inference. You're supposed to make that. So it's implied. They don't have to tell you every stated little term. It's implied. So you are taking on ownership within that contract based on your own conduct. Your conduct shows that you understand what you're doing and you didn't ask further questions. You didn't ask for more documentation and you just went ahead and signed it and went along with it. That would be basically an implied contract. Any lawyer out there listening, please correct my defining of this, but I think I'm hopefully getting sort of the general idea or the spirit or the color of law, right, that I'm trying to express here, right? And then there's also what they call express contracts. And an express contract is basically an exchange of promises, right, where the terms are declared orally or in writing or even both. There could be a mixture of the two, right? And that's where you're sort of expressing or exactly explaining the terms of what it is you want in return for whatever benefit or privilege that you're getting within that contract, right? So these are kind of the two general types of contracts. Obviously, there's a lot more specific subtypes of contracts, but these are sort of the two categories of contracts that I would say. Not, again, never been to law school or any of those things, but I'm just telling you, this reads a lot like a contract. That's what I think it reads like. So if you, in fact, let me, let me, there's a, so I guess I could kind of, um, let me give you sort of a historical. I'll kind of tell you a historical thing, a story that most of you probably already know, but it's regarding Executive Order 6102, right? And Executive Order 6102, which was basically what people consider the confiscation of gold. And basically, what it read was that on or before May 1st, it might have even been like April 28th, something like that, I forget, of 1933, all persons were required to deliver gold coin, bullion, and certificates, I should say, and or certificates to a Federal Reserve bank, branch, or agency, or a member bank, because back then not every bank was part of the Federal Reserve System, right? So, and there are still some nowadays that are not, but for the most part, most banks are all part of the Federal Reserve System. And again, this very similar to now was sort of the under the auspices of a national emergency, right? The economy, the stock market crashed 29, and all that stuff. And most people turned in their gold as sort of a patriotic duty, just like most people who have a company right now. They want to fill this out and be in compliance because they have a patriotic duty to do the right thing. And again, I certainly think you should follow the law at all times. But what happened was is people basically turned in their gold, and at the time I think they were compensated $20.67 per troy ounce, right? Well, what happened immediately afterwards? The government passed the Gold Reserve Act, and basically gold went from effectively $20 an ounce to $35 an ounce, right? And the only way that they were able to push uh, this whole this whole thing, this Executive Order 6102, is because prior to that, they passed a law called the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917, which was basically passed under as a wartime. It's just a wartime statute, right? We need to pass this for just during war times. Well, that stayed in effect, which effectively allowed them to pass this Executive Order 6102. And many people tried to contest this in courts, and eventually it held up in I don't remember the exact case, so you would have to look it up, in the federal or the um, I forget the name of it, the actual case. I guess we could look it up. Uh, Final, we'll just say legal decision on Executive Order, what is it, 6102? Mm, I don't know if they have it. Let's see. I could use, let's look on here. They probably have it April 20th. So it's actually April 28th, May 1st. I don't know. I think they're, if you look up in old newspapers, I think it shows May 1st, but obviously this is saying April 28th. So whatever it was, I don't know. April 28th, May 1st. This is kind of just going over what we talked about. Um, yeah, this just kind of gives. Oh, this is just the actual signing. I guess this is the actual order in and of itself. But you can see the penalties are very similar to the penalties with this BOI filing, which is kind of fascinating, right? So issued that may be fined not more than $10,000 if a natural person may be imprisoned for not more than 10 years. It's really interesting again how they use this word natural person with a legal definition, right? It's kind of an interesting thing. So what does that mean? You may want to look that up. But I don't know whatever the final Supreme Court decision was, but they upheld that this executive order, and that was only because of the prior Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917. So again, just kind of interesting historical things. You may want to look into that. And there's some interesting books you can read about it. If you think I'm a weird conspiracy theorist on some of this, I think there's a book I read several years ago. It's called Manias, Panics, and Crashes. And there's a chapter in there. I think it's called International Contagion. And that concludes that basically the Great Depression did not originate in the U.S., which would make one wonder why the United States would outlaw constitutional money at this time, right? Which is only gold and silver. And you can also, there was another book I read, which is a little more interesting. It's called The Great Depression of a Diary. Um, or sorry, I think it's called, sorry, The Great Depression Diary or something like that. But it's by Benjamin Roth. And that kind of gives you a sense of what one man's thoughts were at that time, what he thought about the government, what they were actually doing, and things like that. So I only bring this up to sort of contextualize about some of these things that the government does are very interesting. And before you necessarily just fill it all out, you should consider what's actually going on. Um, and actually, some of you, if you think I'm being a little conspiratorial, one of the things I'll leave you with is anybody, this is just for fun, but anybody who has a checkbook, I would like you to go out and grab, you can pause it or just do it at the end of this video. Grab your checkbook, and if you have a magnifying glass, I encourage you to go into your checkbook and basically, normally there's the date and then the pay to the order of, and then there's the box where you write the actual numerical amount in there, and then you actually write the text of the amount, the dollar amount, right? And then you can put a memo in there. Well, right next to the memo where you sign your name, it looks like a line, right, where you're actually signing your name, and a lot of times it will say MP at the end of it. Well, if you actually get a magnifying glass and you look at the line underneath where you sign your name, you'll actually see it says something there. It says authorized signature. And I'm not going to go and talk about that, why that is, or what that means. I think that you should go check those things out for yourself. Again, go check out Yusuf L, a guy who is much more brilliant than I, who knows way more things about a lot of this stuff than I do. I only bring these things up for one reason and one reason only. Am I telling you to not fill out your BOI? That is not what I'm telling you. Okay? I'm not telling you to not fill out your BOI. I think you should always follow that which you are legally obligated to. Okay? I just want individuals, especially those who are interested in starting a business, to read and understand all obligations before signing or hitting submit. Okay, so you better understand, so you basically have a better understanding of any obligations that you may currently have or have in the future. And I think before you fill out your BOI, I'm not telling you to not fill it out. I think you probably should. However, before you do, before you hit this, understand that this reads like a contract. And with all contracts, there are obligations. You need to understand what those obligations are. So I would recommend perhaps contacting them and getting more information and understanding exactly what it is that you're signing here and what would be the future ramifications of you agreeing to filling this out. Again, I think that you probably should fill this out. I'm just telling you, in all instances, whether it's the government or with another person or corporation, you should always look into these things. So that's really my main point. I will bring up one little thing too. I'll probably talk about this in a future video, but some of you think if you look at all these things, it always says United States, right? Anytime you look at uh, any of these kinds of things, says right here, does it have in here? I'm trying to see. Anyways, this stuff is always related to the United States, right? You always see the United States. It never says the United States of America. I'm trying to see if it has it. Let's just, maybe we can do. So, where is this? So, updated report is or through a testamentary deposition, the updated report shall to the, oh, sorry, either through the operation of the this right here, intestacy, I don't even know what that is, laws of a jurisdiction within the United States or through a deposition. Okay. But as you go through this, you'll always see anything legal. Anything legal is always the United States. And then you have to wonder, what is the United States and what is their jurisdiction? Now, I'm not going to go down that whole rabbit hole, but what you can do is you can look up Title 28, right? I think it's United States Code right there, Section 3002, Section 15A, right? And you can check this out, and you will see, okay, they have nice definitions here. Let's go down, and the ironic thing is, a lot of these, even the Cornell law stuff, they don't. If you really want to get the full definitions of these things, you need to go get a jurisprudence or juris secundii, and basically go get those at a law library and actually go read this stuff. Then you can see the actual court cases. You can get into the court precedents, the case law, and the full definitions of all this kind of stuff. Is because these are generally pretty abbreviated and all that kind of stuff. But it's still fascinating nonetheless. So you can see the United States means a federal corporation. Well, that's really interesting. The United States is a federal corporation. Well, then you come back here. Doesn't it say the report? What is it right here? When we go to reporting, did I pass it already? Sorry. Um, oh, this is too high. So we go down here, section C. Yeah, reporting company. Isn't it a corporation has to file this? But then you go over here and you see that the United States means a federal corporation, an agency, department, commission, board, or other entity of the United States or instrumentality of the United States. So this is really fascinating. That if this was the first time I was ever seeing this, I would find that incredibly fascinating, right? But then they have exemptions, right? They have exemptions. So what are exemptions? Governmental authority. But then I thought the government is the United States, and the United States is a federal corporation. I'm very confused. I don't understand. Might be something you want to look into at some point in your life. Anyways, I wish all of you health, wealth, and joy in the coming year. Best of luck to all of you. I hope you all had a wonderful 2024. I hope you all have an amazing 2025. And I probably won't have another video by the end of this year, but I will get back and start having more videos. Hopefully, I'll try to get some more interviews that would be fascinating for other people that own businesses that probably are a lot more successful and a lot smarter, a lot more informed about business things than I am. But I will try to bring more of that interesting content to you in the coming year. And take care. Best of luck. Bye bye.